champions. I'm Amy Morgan, the feature writer for the Marriage Initiative, and I am delighted to introduce Dr. John Delony to you today. John is a two-time #1 national best-selling author, mental health expert, and host of the Dr. John Delony Show. He joined Ramsey Solutions in 2020, where he writes, speaks, and teaches on relationships, mental health, anxiety, and wellness. He also serves as co-host of The Ramsey Show, the second largest talk show in the nation. In 2022, John's book, Own Your Past, Change Your Future, instantly became a #1 national bestseller, joining Redefining Anxiety and most recently, Building a Non-Anxious Life, which was published in 2023. He holds 2 PhDs and has more than 2 decades of experience in counseling, crisis response, and higher education. You may be familiar with him as he's appeared on a number of popular TV, radio shows, and podcasts, and has his numerous social media platforms. John, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really grateful.
Well, you have so much to tell us about mental health and relationships. Can you share a bit about your journey? It's not every day someone is tapped to share a studio with one of the most famous radio broadcasters in the nation.
Oh, good grief. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 2 pretty amazing kids. And I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and left there and went to school out in Lubbock in West Texas, where I spent the next half of my life. And then I've been here in Nashville. I came here in Nashville in 2018 to work at Belmont University, an amazing school here in town. And then I gave a speech to some students and their parents, and just so happened that one of Dave Ramsey's executive vice presidents was in the audience, and she said, I'm going to hire that guy. And so now, as my son says, I'm just a YouTuber. That's what he calls me.
Don't you love it how our children can...
Oh, it can deflate me real quick. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm
as he should.
I'm familiar with that sensation. Every now and then I have to tell them I is smart.
He just discovered the show about a year ago. He knows what I do for a living, but he'd never listened to it. And he went on a binge, and we were fishing side by side, no talking. And he just said, "Hey, Dad." And I go, "Yeah." And he got kind of quiet, and he said, "Do you know all that stuff?" I said, "What?" And he goes, "All that stuff on your show. Like, do you know all that?" And I said, "Yeah, I went to a lot of years of grad school, man." And he goes, I didn't know you knew all that." And I was like, man, there it is. So it's good. It's good.
I totally can relate to that. Well, now, not only do you do the Ramsey podcast with Dave, but you have your own podcast, the John Delony Show. So let's talk about that.
It is an old school, think old Dr. Laura, Dr. Phil. People call in from all over the world and just walk through, hey, here's what's going on in my life. And I try to set it up as we just showed up at a restaurant and we're sitting across the table from each other, and how can we figure out what's your next right move? And a lot of it is just kind of clearing away. I spent my whole career sitting with people who are in a mess of some sort. And so how do we clear away all of this, the cloud and the smoke and the ash, and get to what's the thing that you can control and actually do next? And it's been, it shot out from underneath us, and it's taken on a life of its own in a pretty neat way.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about some tough topics. I know I was doing a little pre-research, and I listened to, there was one that was really interesting. A woman had some DNA results that showed that there was a priest was her father, not really. And you addressed that, but then you took it and you took the question and the situation to a broader application about people's relationships with their father. Do you want to, I thought it was really special how you did that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think some of obviously the more sensational calls show up on YouTube, right? And so they get more clicks, but I always want to figure out, is there a way that, and it almost always does, that some sensational thing applies to us. Yeah. And honestly, this comes all the way back. My dad was a homicide detective in Houston growing up, and he used to always, this was a constant thing that he taught me as a young kid, and I'm so grateful he did. He said the hardest part of his job was sitting with somebody who was being accused of and was probably guilty of murder. Wow. And yet you hear their story and you realize, oh, but like 3 or 4 things, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
right? And so this distance between humans is way thinner than we like to think it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, very few people will go through their life and get a DNA test and realize that their local priest growing up is actually their father, right?
Yeah.
And that the person who thought that you were their daughter, that was, and it was wrong. Um, but all of us get to an age when we realize, oh, our dad's not who we thought he was,
Yeah.
or our dads aren't perfect, or my dad had this awesome stuff and these demons. And what do we do when we find that out? And so I think all of us have experienced that, right? Or maybe as a kid, you really are after your dad, and then you get older and you realize, oh, he's a way better human being than I gave him credit for when I was the smartest 14-year-old who ever lived, right? And
He
so
knows stuff.
that's right. He actually knows stuff. That's right. That's right. So, yeah, it's just always trying to find that thread of humanity in people's stories.
Yeah, I just thought that was so interesting. Another question, and this one didn't come from your podcast. I think this came from one of your book signings, but this led you on a journey to create what you are now saying is your opus. But the question is marriage worth it? And I think
Yeah.
as our marriage champions, that's really an area that we'd love to hear your thoughts in.
Yeah, I got asked a question in a signing line, and for folks who don't do signing lines, it this sounds so silly, but you get kind of a sheen over your eyes, right? It just you're smiling and nodding, and you're meeting people and saying hi, but you're signing this book, and then they're getting ushered off, and the next person's coming up, and you sometimes you'll do that for a couple hours, right? Well, this woman leaned forward really quick, and she said, "Hey, real quick, is marriage still worth it?"
Yeah,
And I immediately smiled, and I started on this canned story about me and my wife, and she interrupted me, and she said, "I no, I know it worked out for you, but in this day and age, is it still worth it?" And
yeah,
it broke that sheen. And I looked at her and I smiled and I said, "I don't have a great answer for you. I have a Sunday school answer. I've got my personal opinion. I don't have a great answer for you." And my wife will tell you it's a question, generally a question or two or three that kicks in my OCD a lot, and I end up with another degree and another degree. And so I actually came home a few weeks later and I said, "Hey, if she told me if I get another degree, I'm going to be single." And so um, I said, "I would
don't
be going to
worry.
get another degree." And she's like, "Remember what I said?" I was like, I won't do it." But it sent me on a multi-year adventure trying to answer that question. Um, is it still worth it?
Yeah,
And I'll tell you right now, spoiler alert, not only do I think it's worth it, but over the last 25 years, and especially the last 5 to 10, every tether that binds our culture together,
mhm,
from like all of us growing up thought our politicians, of course, politicians are crooked, but that was the thing to say. But we all thought that our government was pretty much working for us. Nobody
yeah,
believes that. We all thought that I could trust my doctor. People don't believe that.
yeah,
You know what? We could trust my teacher. We don't believe that.
yeah,
And you look at the statistics of people going to church, it's fallen off a cliff, right? It's having a rebound in the last year or two, but all these things that bind cultures together, common stories, have all just been cut overnight, and it's been filled in this big vacuum with technology, numbing, avoid. And so, as I backed out, I remember calling my wife in. I was looking at all this data sitting in front of me, and I looked at my wife, and I was like, this book has just got real scary for me, because not only do I think marriage is important, I think it's the only shot we have left, because
yeah,
we're untethered to anything at all. And the choice to enter into, I'm going to anchor into this bedrock. Will you anchor into it with me till
yeah.
death do us part? And we're going to go out swinging, you and me versus the world. I think that happening in homes will then happen in schools, will then happen in local churches, will then happen in right. So I think that will be the root. If we're going to make it as a society, it's going to have to start back with, I'm in if you are.
Yeah. And you have a really lovely example of kind of what that looked like with your grandparents. Could you share
Yeah.
that story? I love that. And the way too that you tell it, because it's just the way they became one.
Yeah. I mean, my granddad died. And right, they'd been married, I think 73 and a half years. So almost 3/4 of a century. And I remember my grandmother had this sense of And she's a hilarious woman, a straight shooter. She's awesome. One of the coolest ladies ever. But she had this very bewildered, concussive look about her until she passed away. And it was, she had lost part of herself. She lost half of herself.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't know where to look. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know, like, I've lost, it's like if I got cut in half. And it occurred to me in that moment, I've been railing for years against the insanity that the single highest love story, the greatest love story ever told, is a 13 and a 14-year-old who die in a murder suicide. Like, we hold that up. Yes, as a 7th and 8th grader who want to hook up. Like, that's become our North Star for romance. That should tell you how insane our culture is. But so I've talked for years about the idea of a soulmate stupid and it's not real and whatever.
Yeah.
But then I saw them and I watched my grandmother until she passed away, and I realized, oh no, they were soulmates, but they were soulmates in their rearview mirror. Yeah. It took 75 years before they were so intertwined that they shared lungs, they shared hands, they shared feet, they shared arms and legs, they shared minds and spirits. Like, they were one, right? And our current culture says, hey, let's hack that. Let's avoid any responsibility for doing the next right thing. And by the way, they got married and their kids, and my granddad immediately got shipped off to World War II to fight Nazis or whatever. And my grandmother held the fort down, literally, while he was gone. To come from that to where they ended, I thought, oh no, soulmates are real. It just takes a whole lot of work and a whole lot of time and a whole lot of sweat equity and a whole lot of laughter and a whole lot of forgiveness. And you keep showing up and you keep doing the next right thing and the next right thing. And suddenly you look up and you have created an extraordinary life. And so I believe in soulmates now. I just believe it's at the end of the journey, not at the beginning.
I just love that. I have never heard anyone say that before. And I that just made so much sense, and you talked about, kind of back to your marriage opus, that in the whole soulmate thing, whether it's Romeo and Juliet or some of the other silly movies that were so popular in the 80s and 90s, all the rom-coms, that you said something about all the benefits, but none of the responsibility. It's just you complete me.
Well, and here's the thing. Yeah. If somebody completes you, it frees you of the responsibility of getting to know somebody, of putting up with annoying things, of not making up stories in your head when you see the little hairs in the sink after he shaves, or when you see the huge clump of hair in the bottom of the drain after she gets out of the shower, right? Like, I can make up stories in my head all day long, but if I have a soulmate, then suddenly it feels like, oh no, it'll just be easy then. Yeah. And I think it has allowed our culture to just back completely off from any sort of relational responsibility and be like, oh, when it gets hard, that means it's over. Or what I think is one of the great nonsense lines of our time is, this relationship just ran its course. They don't do that. Somebody stops driving, somebody quits, and that's okay. Quit if you want to quit, but don't blame it on the relationship, or we just grew apart. I even have trouble with that, because of course you're going to grow. And when I said I do, that meant I'm going to put our growth ahead of wherever I'm trying to yank this whole thing. And there's been seasons when my wife yanks it one way. There's been years when I yank it another way. When that happens, we decide together we're going to take this adventure, and one of us carries a heavier load for that season. That's marriage. And you get to the end of the finish line, and man, you've had an extraordinary run.
And you had said too that, like, you were talking about the different seasons when you're yanking this way or that, and you learned a few things because you've been married 23, 25 years
23 and a half. Yeah.
There you go. We're just a little ahead of you in the 30s now, but just a little ahead. But you've learned a few things that have
just a few.
And you had a couple of phrases that I really liked. That, what can I do to show you love today? That was one of them.
Well, I'll tell you, I invited my wife. This has happened one time, and I assure you, it will never happen again. I was doing a big marriage retreat, and the surprise guest was my wife. She came out, and I interviewed her on stage. Yeah. And somebody asked, I was taking Q&A from the audience, and somebody asked a question. And I looked at her and said, is it cool if I tell the story? And she goes, I don't know what you're about to tell, but go ahead. And I said, I told the story of when we sat across the table from each other and we were like, okay, we're going to be adults, no screaming, no yelling, no, like, is our marriage over? Are we done? Let's be grown-ups and let's be done. And she announced to the audience, she's like, that's happened like 5 times. That was not just once. And I was like, oh, we're going to tell them all of it. Right. So, but out of that came what I would call like you have just 2 people trying to survive. And one of the ways that one of our survival techniques that has now become one of the cornerstones of what I teach people is I didn't realize how much I wanted to be loved in certain ways, and I just assumed she did. And so I was constantly trying to do things for her that I wished were done for me.
Yeah.
And the big revelation was she simply didn't care what my new promotion was. She didn't care what certificates I got. She wanted me. And that I'd never believed that, right? And so instead of me going outside and roofing the house before she goes to work in the morning and being like, look what I did for you. And she's like, cool. Can you just help feed the kids?
Yeah.
Just simply waking up in the morning and saying, hey, how can I love you today?
Yeah.
And for months, it was like, I don't know. But as we continued and she would ask me, how can I love you today? What do you need today? And by the way, more importantly than what do I need, honestly, is what do you want? And we could talk about wants and needs in a minute too. But that allowed me to hear from her and get to the basis of what I think all good marriages have is, do you see that's another person across from you?
Yeah.
Do you know that person? Like for real know them? Do you celebrate them? If you're not your spouse's biggest cheerleader, somebody else or something else will be. Are you their biggest cheerleader? And those 3 things, seeing somebody and knowing them and celebrating them, gives you permission to relationally to challenge them. Hey, I don't love this, or you didn't show up like you said you were going to, or we both agreed and you didn't. Like those things allow you to do that. So just asking, how can I love you today, is a way to get to know your partner again. And it transforms everything.
Yeah.
And by the way, it takes some humility, like, right? Like to say, I've been married to this person for 10 years, 15 years. And I thought you liked your car. Like I thought I knew you. That's humbling, right? It's embarrassing in a way. And so you're almost going back to the well again, saying, all right, how can I love you today?
And one of the things she said once was, will you take our daughter today? I'm exhausted. And then you did it.
Yeah. Well, and that led to the second question that we ask every day of our lives, which is, what does your picture of fill in the blank look like? And here's why. We think in pictures, but we speak in words. And so often, I'll use a silly example. If my wife came up to me and said, hey, this Friday night, you and me, we're going on a hot date. I'd be like, sweet. And I would come out. I might be in a suit wondering what hotel we were going to end up at. And she might come out in like a t-shirt and running shorts and be like, what are you doing? And be like, you said a hot date. And she's like, yes, we're going to go eat Mexican food out at the taco stand out here. It's like 6 tacos for $1. But here's the thing. We both said date. And I love tacos. She loves romantic getaways. But now both of us are upset that the other person didn't hear us. We had these expectations, and then it turns into the stories we make up about our spouses. Like he always does this, and she never does this. And so now we simply ask, hey, what does your picture of this look like? Because in that situation, she can say, hey, I need a break. How can I love you today? I need a break when you get home. Yeah. I can easily go, okay, cool. At the time that happened, I was working full time and she was staying at home full time. So cool. After dinner's done and the kids are in bed and whatever, I won't hassle you. I'll leave you alone. And the picture in her mind was, the moment this guy walks in the door, I'm out of here. I'm leaving, and I may never come back, but maybe, right? I'm going to leave. And so me simply saying, hey, what's your picture of tonight look like is, I need a break. When you get home, I'm going to go to the coffee shop. I'm going to write for a couple hours, and dinner, you and the kids. And I'm like, gotcha. Done. Cool. Because we're aligning our pictures. We're not just using words. And that has transformed our whole marriage too.
That is I love that, aligning our pictures. I'm trying to take notes because that's so helpul.
We do that when we travel. Hey, what's your picture of this vacation look like? Hey, we're going to see your parents. What's your picture of that look like? Yeah. Like, what does your picture of Saturday morning look like? And it just changes. It's transformed everything.
Oh, I love that. And I'm sure it builds your friendship, because that friendship with your spouse is something else that you really talked about.
Yeah, it's just if man underneath the data says underneath all of the stuff, underneath religion, sex, money, all the kids, things we fight about. The question that matters the most is, are y'all still friends?
Mhm.
And it's amazing to me how often, and this is me, like I'll help my buddies out with anything.
Mm.
Yet when I get home, I'm like, what is she trying to say? That the cups are out, right? Or what is she trying to say that the door is closed? Like, and if she was my friend, I'd walk in the house and say, how can I help? But sometimes she's my wife and I'm like, you know what I did today? Right. And so it's just getting back to, do we have fun together? And if not, why? Why have we co-created a world where we don't have fun together? One of the most awesome questions in that last big blow up when I literally thought my marriage was over. One of us said it, and I honestly can't remember who, so I'm gonna give my wife credit because she's usually wiser and smarter than me. Said, well, we've chosen a pretty crappy marriage. I guess that means we could choose one that's awesome.
Mm.
And I remember that felt so empowering. Like
Mm.
we've chosen this through 1,000 steps over several years. I guess we could take another 1,000 steps in a few more years and choose something incredible. And that was the shift out for us, which was pretty amazing.
Oh,
Because it made it wasn't an inevitable end. It was a choice. If we end this, we're deciding to. If we keep going exactly the same way it is, we're deciding to. If we want to just decide to make this awesome, we can do that too.
wow. I hope Marriage Champions, I hope you got that you could decide to make it. If you chose to make it crummy, you can choose to make it awesome.
Yeah.
And that's a decision and a choice. I love that. Well, one of the things, not surprising, being associated with the Ramsey Group, you talk about is money. You have a marriage and money weekend, a getaway that you do with Rachel Cruz, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And you talk about how money can amplify all the problems. Let's talk about what you say when you. I know is it a once a year week getaway, or is it?
It's twice a year, and couples come in from all over. I mean, they've come in from internationally. They come in from all over here to Nashville and spend 3 days with us. And it's the thing I'm most proud of that I'm a part of.
Ah,
And it's as real as it's. I wanted I wanted to make it the most honest and real marriage conference on the planet, and I think we've got there. So, but we talk about everything, and if you want to know everything, we talk about everything. So I love it, and money is such a big topic, and I think it's such a big topic because money is values
mhm.
expressed. And you've heard the old saying, like, you show me your calendar and you show me your bank account, and I'll tell you who you are. That shows up when two people are trying to handle money a certain way.
Mhm.
One person thinks, no, this is my job. This is your job. I want to borrow money. I don't want to owe anybody any money. We have to have a brand new car. I will never buy a depreciating asset that's just going to sit in the driveway and lose money. Like it expresses in real, like skin in the game. Here's what you actually believe.
Yeah.
And I think the last stat I saw, 56% of married couples, have never had a serious conversation about money. And
Wow.
the thought that I
Wow.
would create a human with my wife, like I would create a human,
Yeah.
but we wouldn't talk about money because it was too sensitive and too scary. Blows
Yeah.
my mind, right? It's hard, but money's laden with all kind of stories and trauma, and it's just such a heavy topic. So putting it on the table and giving folks the tools for talking about it is
Yeah.
really helpful.
Yeah, one of the things you said was like starting with an I message, and I loved how you did not drop. Was it the conversation grenade
Mhm.
into or the grenade into the conversation to blow it up? If somebody's the spender, and some of it's sometimes the not the less saver may not be a spender, but they're spendee. I think Shanti felt they seem
uh,
spendee to the saver.
Yeah, Rachel Cruz coined some great nerd names. In most relationships, there's a nerd and there's a free spirit,
Yeah.
and the nerd is the one that likes to check the crypto, where it is and has the spreadsheets and all of the amortization schedules on the mortgage, whatever. And the free spirit's like, oh, I don't care, whatever. And the beauty is both of those people are really, really important, because if I married another free spirit, we would have so much fun, and we would have no electricity on in our home either.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
evidently they want to be paid every month, right? That's ridiculous. And if my wife didn't have me in her life, she'd go to bed every night at 8:15, and she would wake up and she would have a very orderly, boring, miserable, unadventurous life, right? And so it's like it's coming together, but you're really coming at this with two different languages. One of you is speaking French, and one of you is speaking Italian. So how do we bring people to the table? And it's important for both people to sit down at the table. In fact, there's research that shows, it's causal research, which is rare in research. Usually it's correlative, like it's associated with causal. If you'll share one checking account, your marriage is stronger over time. Mm-hmm. And I get more hate for saying that than almost anything else I say. And again, the thought that I would share genes with somebody to create a human, but I won't share a checking account, it blows my mind. But people want to hang on to, this is mine. I worked hard and this is mine. This is yours. And then you end up with couples Venmoing each other for the water bill, which is just, it's madness, right? So it's saying like, okay, if we're going to join money, what does that mean? Well, I have to be able to say, I don't think you're safe with spending. And someone has to be able to say, you're over controlling and you treat me like I'm stupid. Mm-hmm. And so we have to address the root issues here. Yeah. I think you're not as smart as me. I think I've got a secret plan that's going to make us $1 billion. Well, I think you're a schemer and you make us unsafe. We need to have those conversations, not our own separate checking accounts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And to do that, like you said, without setting off the conversation grenade, but to be able to have those. And that's one thing you direct at that conference. So I love that. Another thing that you've developed to help couples is your Together app. And it's new over just a year, and it's helped thousands of couples already. But let's talk about it, because you're not trying to get people on more technology. That was one of your bugaboos.
No, yeah. In fact, I fought the guys who wanted to, there's a group of developers and these amazing techno wizards here. They're like from Hogwarts or something. But they came and had an idea for an app to take all the stuff I teach on marriage and relationships and put it in an app. And I said, no chance. There's no way. Because I'm watching phones destroy relationships. Through social media, cheating, through just numbing out. The number of couples who sit 6 inches from each other, are 6,000 miles away from each other on the couch, the same couch, because they're both on their own devices and other planets. Yeah. And so I said, no way. And then they kept asking and kept pressing and had more meetings. And I said, okay, you develop an app. The main goal of this app is to get people off of it and get them back into their marriage. I'm in. Yeah. And they were like, game on. And they came back, and it has been a back and forth for several years. And what we've all created is, I'm really, really proud of it.
Well, talk about, you said something, micro habits. What's a micro habit?
It's just distilling the drama and the existential crisis we have wrapped culturally around this thing called marriage, and distilling it down into, it's it's hard, but it's way simpler than we make it out to be. And so what is a path back to that person that at one point I looked at and said, I do? How do we get back there? We have years of hurt. We have years of made up stories in our mind. We might have trauma. We might have all kinds of stuff. How do we get back? And so this app it's just micro habits that you put in what season you're in, whether you're struggling with mental load, you're struggling with, you got young kids, you're about to be empty nesters, wherever you find yourself. And it learns you over time, which is amazing. And it gives you a daily action step, a daily challenge to go do, to bring you one little bit closer to your spouse. And the people coming back have, like, even the president of the company, Dave Ramsey's son, when he first got it and saw the first couple of weeks of, I remember him seeing the first week of activities. He was like, this is ridiculous. This is it. And I said, you got to trust me. And he's like, oh, whatever. He comes back a few weeks later and he's like, this thing is like a magic wand. It's amazing. And so it's really going all the way back. If you followed Financial Peace University, Dave's like, hey, before you do anything, go get $1,000, sell stuff, go work 5 jobs, just do this, and then we'll go from there. But I have all these bills. Just go get it. So it's that. How can I get our relationship back bare bones? Can you walk in the door and put your phone away and give your wife a 30-second hug, and don't break the hug? There's all this brain science and neuroscience. That's not in this app. Can you just take a note and run out to your husband's car and put it in the car before he leaves for the day? And will you just send him a ridiculous text? Even if you have to set a timer for yourself to remind yourself to send the funny text or the silly text or the flirty text or whatever. And so it's just walk in the door from work, and immediately before you do anything else, before you change, go do one chore that is not normally a responsibility around the house you normally do. Just go do it. And then here's the big kicker. Don't tell anyone. Just go do it. And what we're seeing is people like, fine, or I'm tired, but I'll do it. And then suddenly that 30-second hug turns into a 60-second hug, turns into, well, I won't keep going, but like it just gets, it's just breaking down the drama into bite-sized chunks for folks.
I love that. You're making me want to download that. That's for empty nesters. That I'm like, there's an empty nest section. You're making me want to go. You sold it well, so I'm intrigued. Well, John, we could keep talking about so many things. You've got your great Building a Non-Anxious Life book. You've got an anxiety test actually right there at your website. That's a free test that people can see how they're doing in different areas. So I would encourage our marriage champions to check that out too. I know I looked at that, but we have run out of time. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm grateful for your hospitality. Thank you.
Well, you've shared so much valuable information. And marriage champions, if you'd like to learn more about Dr. John Delony and his resources, and I would encourage you to, you can always find us at marriageresources.org and marriageinitiative.org.